Greeting, family and friends, fellow YouTubers, gardeners, homesteaders. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us here today. I'm going to try to keep this a short video, 6 to 7 minutes if I can. Chris and Darlene from Homesteading the Hard Way had produced a video where they tagged me and they asked me why I farm. Now, as far as I know, this collaboration started from the pharmacy seeds, and I'm going to leave a link to both those channels below. Please visit those two channels out. Great channels. Now, I'm going to give you a short little history about me, how I was brought up. But I've been involved in a lot of different types of farming. I was born on a dairy farm. At the time, my dad was working a dairy farm. And then later on, when my brother, my sister, and I were young, we moved to Columbia, Connecticut. And there we had 3.5 acres. At the time, Dad was working he had his own business, remanufacturing heat treating equipment. But he bought this house, and we had 3.5 acres. And that's when our gardening experience started. That's when I bought my first horse. We had a couple sheep. We had a few chickens, rabbits. The gardening part, I didn't want a whole lot to do with it at that time. I had a lot of other things that I wanted to do. There was a little gas station I was helping out at, a lawnmower shop that I was helping to rebuild motors at. There was a riding stable that I was involved in. And as I said, we all had to do our part in the garden. So we moved to Maine in 1974, and that's when Mom and Dad started their homestead. At the time, we were milking 4 cows, and we're making butter and all kinds of things. And I know Mom and Dad sold butter at the time from our cows. I think there were about 80 sheep at the time. Mom and Dad, from the sheep, had started quite a knitting business where they had the wool that they produced. It was processed, it was dyed, and from that they were making all types of socks. It was an antique cylinder machine that they were using to make, let's see, there was classic, there was boot socks, there was knee highs, and then there was one, I think it was called Country Classic, if I remember right. These went up about halfway up your thigh, and a lot of skiers would buy these. At the time, Mom was also making hats and sweaters, scarves, mittens. That was done on a flatbed machine. And it did really well until the government got involved in it. We also had pigs and chickens, turkeys, ducks, geese, rabbits. And so raising animals and plants, that all started at a very young age. Now, growing up, dairy farming had always interested me. And I knew at a young age that I wanted to work on a dairy farm. At 17 years old, I left home. And I went to work on a dairy farm which tied up 54 Holsteins. And back then I was making $50. This was to milk cows before I went to school. When I got home from school, had to grain them up, had to hay them. The cows had to be cleaned out, had to spread the dressing. Not much money back then, not when you knew the work that had to be done. During the summer, it was haying. And I mean, we hayed all summer long, right up into the wee hours of the morning. And then back up at 3 o'clock to start milking. Now, once out of school, I worked full-time for a few different dairy farms. And I did that until I went into the service. Now, in 1983, after losing my leg and retiring out of the military, I went right back into working for a 200-head dairy farm, which I managed. And I guess I had it in my blood. And I was very successful at dairy farming. I enjoyed it. I studied it. I studied feed programs and breeding programs, and I knew how to get the milk out of the cows. I also helped, and I guess you could say that I partially managed my parents' sheep farm. At the time, we had about 200 plus breeding ewes where we would raise Easter lambs. I know at the time, Mom and Dad were getting about 410, 420 a pound live weight, which is pretty good money when these lambs were weighing 30, 40, 50 pounds. They also raised freezer lamb, and we had a lamb that the market wanted. We also had sheep on tree farms, ski resorts where we did an intensive grazing program, which worked really well. So that brings me to today. Now, I'm not working at a dairy farm anymore, but I do a lot of gardening. I love starting seeds. I like watching little seeds like these. These are lettuce seeds that I harvested from my lettuce. I've got a few different ones that I harvested from my lettuce plants last year. I love watching those tiny little tender seedlings grow and then produce something that I can bring into the house and we can enjoy. You know, I can't grow vegetables cheaper than what you can go to the store for, but, you know, I know how they've been harvested. I know how they were raised. I knew what went into that soil. And for some, that's not a big deal. But to me, it is. I want to know what I'm eating. Also, you can't beat the taste of fresh, homegrown vegetables and fruit. I also like to give to those that can't grow their own, those who have a hard time even buying their own vegetables. So this is a way that I can be a blessing for them, to them. I also like to prove things that so many biologists have written. They've written books and they'll tell you that you can't do this and you have to do this. I love to prove them wrong. You know, when I first started watching the videos on the Back to Eden type gardening method, which is what I use, I had some doubts. I had questions. But I went ahead and I did it. And I love it. I love it. I'll never go back to another type of farming. I like being a blessing to others. Now, out of my 30 by 35 main garden, and I also have 3 30 by 4 feet raised beds, I produce enough food for us to eat fresh, and we can and we freeze, but I also give about 500 pounds to those who might be struggling. So, there you have some of the main reasons why I've been involved and why I love farming. Now, I know that in most collaborations there are so many that you're supposed to tag. And because there are so many challenges going on right now, I'm not going to tag anybody, but I'm going to ask you, if you do want to be involved in this collaboration, awesome. And I want to hear your story, because everybody has a story. I want to hear yours. But I would ask you, let me know if you want to do this. Write in the description box, yeah, Jim, I want to do this. I'll let you know why I garden or homestead or farm, whatever you do. I want to hear your story. So I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for supporting this channel. I think I'm up to 323 subscribers. I want to thank you all, because I'm not going to have that many if you don't subscribe. So I thank you for the supporting. I would ask you to please click the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and if you feel led to share this video, by all means do. Thank you again. God bless you.